Blessings, everyone. Thank you for joining me. And it's really a great day for me today because I get to catch up with an old friend of mine, Hudson Byblow from Canada. So I don't get to see him too often, but it's nice to get to see you today, Hudson.
Yeah, nice to see you too. It's been a long, long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. How long have we known each other? About maybe about 7 years,
It's about that. Yeah, 7, 8, maybe 2015-ish,
probably. Yeah.
16.
It's
Yeah,
been a long time.
yeah,
But and we did meet in person at the 2018 Courage
yeah,
conference, and then Philly, and then you were out here in San Francisco,
yeah.
and we hung out for the day.
Actually, you know what? I think it's 2013 because in 2013,
Wow.
someone handed me a copy of your book, your first book,
Wow.
and I was like, and then I read it. I read it cover to cover, and I was like, I need to talk to this guy.
Good. Yeah, that's been ten years.
Yeah.
So Hudson is a Roman Catholic. I'm formerly a Roman Catholic. So I thought it would be good to get his perspective on what transpired. I guess it was yesterday. I don't know. I've already podcasted on it somewhere. It feels like old news already. The document published by the Vatican, which is being interpreted as permitting same-sex the the blessing of same-sex couples by a priest. So I prepared a little slideshow. So I'm going to share our screen. So this is kind of Hudson. I'll do this fast. This was kind of, I think, what I did in the podcast yesterday with Father Alexis and Dave Gordon. This is abbreviated though. I kind of did the history of LGBT affirmation in the Catholic Church.
Hmm.
This is probably one of the earliest like photographs I could find. I don't remember the other names of these priests, although I've done research on all of them. This one is John J. McNeil, who wrote the famous book, The Church and the Homosexual.
Ah,
The original date, I think it might have been 1976. I don't know.
yeah,
It's still in print. So he
yeah.
was a very early gay rights advocate in the Catholic Church, a Jesuit, of course. And this is at a it's they're marching with dignity, and I think this is
Yeah,
in New York at a gay pride parade.
yeah.
Here you got Cardinal Bernardine in Chicago, and this is kind of the infamous gay rainbow banner that was burned when,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Did you hear about that story? Father Paul Kalchek took
Yeah,
over.
that was like 5 years ago or so ish.
I think you're correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is gosh, I don't know why it's doing that. This is what is he now? Is he a cardinal?
Wilton
Oh,
Gregory?
yeah, I think he's an archbishop. Let's say Archbishop Wilton Gregory
Yeah.
and a young Bishop Barron.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah. So they both came out of Chicago under Cardinal Bernardine. Um, here's Gregory and McCarrick.
Hmm.
The- Let's go over this real quick since we're talking about Barron. I tried to put these slides in order. And, to be honest with you, I didn't even have a chance to look at this really closely.
Yeah.
So this statement was just released by Robert Barron. I don't know if Hudson, you got, you know, you're busy with other things, but I don't know if you are aware. I've done two podcasts on Bishop Barron recently. So one with the Shakas from Angry Catholic, and then another one with Father Gene Gomulka. So I've
Hmm.
done two. I'm gonna real time this. Look at it. Yeah, I can see what
Yeah.
he. I believe that the declaration is very much congruent with the pastoral instincts of Pope Francis, who always wants to remind those who are living the Christian life in a less imperfect way that they are nevertheless loved and cherished by God. Okay, well, Bishop, I think this confirms a lot of my suspicions about Bishop Barron. Is it? because I kind of followed his career. He was much more conservative, orthodox during the Pope Benedict papacy,
Hmm.
and he very much shifted under Francis. I think he stuck his finger in the wind, and he saw that Francis was more
Hmm.
more more liberal, and I think this this reflects that.
You know, um, where should we begin? I don't want to. I don't want to speculate on where someone might be pointed, and I just have kind of trained myself out of speaking about like liberal and conservative, and I think maybe that's because in Canada we're less politically driven. Let's say like than what's in the United States, everything is so connected to politics. So I'm gonna just kind of look at this through the lens of like what would be, from what I understand, like orthodox. And this is the tricky thing about even statements of truth, let's say, it's is what type of impression could this give to people? Because if you contrast this with Father Chris LR, who's saying, there's it even the document itself doesn't say like, okay, now we're blessing the couplehood. The letter, the letter that precedes the document says it opens the door to the blessing of same-sex couples, but it doesn't say blessing the couplehood or the relational configuration, so to speak. And so I I want to look at it through the lens of like the church proposes, as you know, the church proposes the virtues to live virtuous life. I think that's a unifying point between Orthodoxy and Catholicism. But one of those virtues is chastity and the successful integration of our sexuality. And I don't see how the letter of the law has changed at all, but um, it's opened the door, it seems, for people to say, "Oh, this means that," and then you have posts by people like Father James Martin who said, "Finally, now I can bless same-sex couples," right? And so the real question is, how would you how would a truth be stated on this topic? I mean, we know everything could be made more clearly, more precise, but what would that have looked like so that someone like Father James Martin even would have said, "Wow, okay, I can't go and bless this same sex relationship," and even if he wanted to, he still can't because he doesn't have the authority to do it, um, because you can't, as the church has said before, you can't bless
Hmm.
the irregular relationship, which is fundamentally counter to
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
successful integration of sexuality. So people like him and on both sides, if I had to say sides, have taken this to mean like extreme different things. And I heard one time that if you write something that kind of like ruffles the feathers of the left and the right, if I had to use left and right, then there might be some value to it, but there's still souls in the balance who will be formed to believe that some things are okay now that aren't okay. And so, in the whole scheme of things, there's a lot of work to do. That's about all I got to say about that. It's
I,
smiling.
no, I hear you. I took a couple of notes while you were talking about something you were saying. I was also, forgive me, I was also looking up at the statement from
No problem.
Robert Barrow. No, no, no.
And
But it
checking memes about this topic already are everywhere.
no, but it relates to what you were saying. So he says, I'll try to put the cursor here. Despite some misleading reporting in the media, I can't pronounce that. Fudici,
Fiducia
Fidi.
implicans,
Okay,
probably.
thank you. Okay. We'll go with that. In no way
Sure.
sanctions irregular bonds or changes the church's teaching on marriage and sexuality. Okay. Now, I remember around when I was still Catholic, when Amoris Laetitia came out, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of controversy about, oh, well, they're not. They're not, sanctioning, people who are in a second marriage or a third marriage or whatever, that they can receive Holy Communion. And then later it came out, well, yeah, that's kind of what it meant. So, and then the other thing, but this has to say, this addresses kind of what you said too, is that I think especially in, well, there's always, I think in the Catholic Church, there's always sometimes, I don't want to say always, in the Catholic Church, sometimes there's a gulf between what takes place pastorally as opposed to what, let's say, is written in the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, your testimony speaks to that quite profoundly, you know. I gotta mention one thing here. That whole idea of like, well, this must be the right thing to do. People's perspective of what they ought to do is, I mean, we have to say that everybody's conscience is clouded by sin to some degree. I know Catechism 1865, sentence 2 talks about this. And when a conscience is clouded, it becomes impaired at judging it as judgment of good and evil. And that's how you get priests in the confessional who are saying, here's my phone number, right? Which never happened to me, but your story talks about that kind of stuff. Or somebody saying, hey, guess what? Now I can bless the same-sex relationship above and beyond a blessing for each person. But it's this idea that the formation of conscience is underneath that. And I mean, underneath that is the whole topic of sin. And gosh, how many people of faith or not of faith, like actually will accept the moral authority of the church as the spotless bride of Christ to define sin, and you could look at you could Orthodoxy or Catholicism or
Yeah.
Church of the East, like some people just want to define sin for themselves. And then it's giving them permission to, I don't know, say, well, this must be the right thing to do because
Yeah.
I've determined what sin is. And
Yeah.
chastity is not part of that picture to reject chastity. So,
Yeah.
sorry, I just had to go there because that's all it's been coming up is like the clouding of conscience is now clear, It's like, so it's like almost like despite the tragedy of how things will get spun, it's kind of great that some people are more emboldened than they were before to kind of say, this is what I actually believe. I'm like, great, now I know who you are.
I get it. And no, and the next couple of slides I think will demonstrate this, is that in the Catholic Church, nowhere is that chasm between pastoral practice and, let's say, the Catechism of the Catholic Church so wide is in the LGBT issue. Because I think you would have a very difficult time finding a Catholic priest saying to a woman, go ahead, get an abortion. It's okay. But I think a LGBT person would not have a very difficult time finding a Catholic priest to say, do your best, try to settle down with one person of the same sex, go ahead, get the transgender surgery. You're living your authentic self. You would find.
Yeah, 100%. Gosh, even some like I know, somebody he even told me, he's like, yeah, I went to this priest and there was a little of course there's a kind of a pride sticker adorning his space and trying to convince him to go to the pride center to get connected. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, like this kid's trying to actually, he's an adult, okay, trying to practice his faith authentically, and he gets told by a priest to go like, get connected with the pride center. Like
Yeah.
what's up with that? It happens. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but it happens. And like I don't disagree. Like even yeah, it's easy. Like it's easy to say, of course abortion's bad. Of course abortion's bad
Yeah.
in the church. But I mean, it's an uphill battle in the other direction.
Yeah. One of the
Also,
worst. Go ahead,
I was just
Pastor.
say it's also a pro-life issue. The LGBTQ thing should be considered a pro-life issue, and I'm blown away that. Well, I'm not blown away. I'm blown away that it's not being framed as such, but I know that it's going to take time for it to get there, if it gets there, because like at the end of the day, people are entering into types of despair, and they're doing things in their bodies that are counter to their design and whatever. There's a if you look at the stats, I mean, there's a lot of unwellness, let's say, and what I'd worry about is how everything's become so pat on the back that there could be real underlying things that are being addressed, or people are scared to address them because they're afraid to do anything that's less than perfectly affirmative. And in the meantime, there are people who are really suffering and who need actual help.
Yeah. Just real quick, an anecdote, because I know you've been really like outspoken about the trans issue, is one of the worst examples I ever heard was when I was still doing ministry in San Francisco and I was a Catholic, I got to know a male to female um, transgender person and hadn't seen them in a while, and I saw them and they looked different. And he had told me that he had gotten the facial feminization surgery. And he said that, oh, the priest at my Catholic parish was very supportive, and everybody at the parish was supportive of this decision. And I was like, well, I don't know what to say. Not much I could say there.
Yeah, yeah. I I I I shared a post recently with permission of a mom whose child went through that, and the plea was basically like, when my daughter comes home with like a beard and like a low voice and whatever, and without her breast, like, will you be there to support me as I grieve? And it's like, the truth is probably not. Very few will be,
Yeah.
because people have to follow their own truth,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like the conscience, a person's conscience has become elevated to God, but people have failed to form their consciences.
Mm, mm.
I mean,
Well, it's the easy, and I think it's the popular, and I think it's the trendy thing to do with someone who either comes out as gay or trans, is just to support them. And
yeah, there's an
uh
element of that for sure.
yeah, not to put, I mean, you're a crank if you push back or question.
Yeah.
So, and nobody wants to be that. This is when I was at the LA Rec, and
Yeah.
they did a presentation on the genderbread person.
Yeah, I remember that. You showed me
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, the
This was back
gender.
in 2015 or 16 or something.
No, earlier than that. Maybe like 20, right before COVID, probably like
Yeah.
2019. So here Pride masses, which I think I've become very familiar with. James Martin, this is when he was doing some speaking at the World Meeting of Families, I think it's called.
You
And
know,
there was this creepy graphic here with the child's hand and the adult, and it's very
oh,
bizarre.
you know what, like, is like, does that like foreshadow type of like mentoring or like special mentoring, or like, let's get you away from your parents so we can mentor you kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's exactly what the people online are doing to the kids, saying your
Mm-hmm.
parents hate you.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever, because this is who you are, first of all, if you ever question yourself, this means it's who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
if your parents are going to hate you because they actually believe in Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what flavor that is. And it's like, actually, there was, gosh, do you remember this young lady left a suicide note for her parents? It
Mm-hmm.
was just like, if because I'm this, I know that you hate me, and because you hate me, I killed myself. It was
Mm-hmm.
in California, is a young, I don't know, whatever, young lady. And I'm like, yeah, but like, that's just like, that's tragic, but it's increasingly common.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, who, there's people getting, it's a race to mindsets.
Yeah. Well, I think in the United States, there's been a lot of controversy about, especially in terms of the transgender issue, about um, schools or teachers interfering or the intervening, I guess you could say, what they would say, with the child and sort of their psychosexual development.
Yeah.
But I have been, I mean, one sticks out in my mind. Clearly, I've been to these sort of Catholic seminars for Catholic teachers and educators where they were pretty much advocating the same thing about identifying um, children that might look like they're on the margins and then befriending them and then, you know, I think it was sort of implanting kind of the idea that they're LGBTQ and then, sort of confirming them in that. So that's going on in the Catholic churches, schools as
Oh
well.
yeah, 100% it is.
Yeah.
And I'm sad to say. So really, it gets me thinking about like, well, who are the decision makers in that stuff, Like, and when everybody went online for school a little bit, like during COVID and stuff, they kind of blew the lid on some of this because
Yeah.
suddenly people are like, "Oh, you're not allowed to like watch what I'm teaching your kid." I'm like, "Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?" That's
Yeah. Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That was creepy.
Yeah.
This was the gay men's chorus that sang at St. Ignatius in San Francisco. Um, this is kind of interesting. I think this tweet, was this a tweet or a Facebook? That's Twitter. Um, from James Martin, where Pope Francis had a meeting with this man who's a pre-sex abuse survivor. Now he's on the Pontifical Council for the Protection of Minors.
Mm.
But James Martin and him as well stated that Pope Francis said, "Well, God made you gay." So this was 2018. This was a pivotal year for me. This is when I kind of left the church, at least in my mind, I did,
Yeah.
because that was McCarrick, that was Vigano, and then the Germans in Germany started doing the same-sex blessings, and
Yeah.
all this stuff with the Pope and God made you gay stuff came out, and I was really offended, and I called it quits.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking while I was driving to meet with you here online. I was thinking, like Joseph, like I could never blame someone who's gone through the things that you did at the hands of like the clergy, and not only the clergy, but people in the church who couldn't be present to listen and instead just, let's say, tried to push things under the rug and be a part of, let's say, the ignoring of the truth of the tragedy that's going on. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not just the clergy; it's the people that embolden the situation. And I mean, I think of times where I didn't stand up for justice and stuff, and it's like, I was talking with my mom this morning. I popped by their place about there's this kid who lived on our street when I was younger, and the kids on the bus bullied him, and I said nothing because I was scared. And now I'm like older, I'm like, I should have done something, but I was scared. And so, I mean, God will sort out the culpability, but like, anyway, yeah, like my conclusion thought was like, yes, of course, like I'm not leaving the Catholic faith, and I know that I can stay here and try to work from the inside and give my life to Jesus in this space. And of course, I'm gonna say it. I love if you came back to the faith, but I don't hold my breath for that. But at the same time, you're in an apostolic Christian church, and that fills my heart with joy because I know that we're in a place where you know you're able to work through some of your stuff, and like I said, you're in an apostolic Christian church with the valid sacraments, so like that makes me very happy.
Thank you. And this episode was offensive to me too, because in my own therapy, I had um, connected a lot of the dots between my own childhood sexual abuse and then my later, the later emergence of homosexuality. And here you had the Vicar of Christ telling a pre-sex abuse survivor that they were born gay. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah, that's just not okay.
it isn't okay. And the majority of gay men were sexually abused, same sex. So here
Mhm.
we've got rainbow stoles.
Yeah.
This is me with Archbishop Gomez in Los Angeles trying to
Oh,
get him on the same page as I was on, and he was clueless, and that was a waste of time.
yeah. Hey, about that previous slide, I was just reading in a book. Um, it's by that guy with the Aiken, Jimmy Aiken, about Catholic liturgy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's a part about like liturgical abuses, investments, and like those rainbows are not. I mean, I'm trying to count the colors. One, two, three, four, five,
Well,
six, seven.
they got the updated flag here on the
Oh, okay. Oh,
wall.
yeah. Okay. The investment rainbows are actually God's rainbow colors. So I'm like, okay, well, okay, maybe there's a soft pass on that. But if they were not, it'd be like, this is absolutely not okay. This could be like liturgical abuse by way of vestments. But I didn't even know. I didn't even notice the flag in the background. And what do you say to that, other than like, Lord help us? You know, the this is that thing. So you know about that trucker convoy that went through Canada a little while ago?
Very well,
Everybody
yeah.
knew about that. Yeah, well, you
Yeah.
know it's funny because there's people who hated that, and because they hated that, the representation of the Canadian flag, which was everywhere, people are saying, now when I see the Canadian flag, it means something else to me. It means I don't like it anymore. And I'm like, this is the point. Is like a flag can mean different things to different people. And
Hmm.
while it's true that those types of flags might mean, okay, here's a place to land, here's a place where I can find where I have other people who think like me, where I'm not alone. At the same time, the undercurrents of that flag mean for many people why I can never have children anymore, or why I've lost my body parts, or why my mother left to go be with another woman and destroy our family, or my father went and decided to become a woman, or to believe he's becoming a woman and like abandon us children, all that stuff. There's destruction. There's destruction and death. It's a flag of death. It's a flag of death.
I agree.
And even like helping people understand that, let's say if a young boy, for example, is groomed into the idea that they're trans, what's downstream from that is them trying to fulfill an identity of being trans or being most woman-like, which means this is kind of a uncomfortable thought, but it means likely having being penetrated by a man in the anus at some point or another. It's like
Hmm.
what it is. And every single person that I've talked to who's on their way out of LGBTQ mindset, especially the trans stuff,
Hmm.
like they can all verify that's part of it, especially for the guys.
Hmm.
That's part of it. And so let's just affirm those children down that road. Yeah, let's do
Hmm.
that. It's insane.
Yeah. Been there,
And
done that.
the
Yeah.
kids they need to know that they're loved. They need to know that there's a safe place to belong. Um, but for the love of God, like how we are influencing and shaping children is going to have ramifications. And I just don't think people want to face that reality.
No, I agree.
And then I'm sorry to know that
No, no,
the
no.
Archbishop didn't really
Oh, no. Here,
respond like
yeah. Here's more gay affirmation, Catholic Church.
yeah,
This is the gender unicorn that they were using at one of the
Holy Redeemer. Yeah,
at one of the parishes in San Francisco. This was like a catechetical aid that they were using.
that's unbelievable. It's so
Queer
disgusting.
Queer Gaming Day, that was here at the parish. I've shared this lots of times, but I'm not going to read it. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
this.
Joseph, it's everywhere. It's so thick and so through and through. The only way that I can like understand like what happened is literally people saying, I reject the moral authority of the Catholic Church to define sin. I'm going to define it myself instead. And if it feels good or this desire is strong enough, and I've had people tell me that the desire is so strong, so surely it could not be a sin. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
But that's the other answer. If the church can't point to something and say this is sinful, then who is it? It's you, it's me, and it's like that's where's that going to lead?
correct. This is Catholic Charities of the East Bay. That's the Diocese of Oakland, for people maybe in California. Love is love.
Yeah, everywhere. What is love?
Well, with the rainbow flag as a backdrop, we know what they
Yeah,
mean.
exactly. That's like if a person can't see through that code, then what's what, right?
Yeah, we know.
Yeah,
This is an example of the this is sort of pastoral as opposed to um official church proclamations. You know, when I heard about this whole gay marriage blessing thing, I was kind of like, ho hum, it's already going on. And I remember that a Catholic priest who was very, very good. Things didn't end well for him, but that's another story. But I remember him telling me sort of about his priesthood, and especially in, I don't know what it was like in Canada, but in the United States, sort of how sort of organically communion in the hand started, and
Mhm,
then um, altar girls,
mhm.
how he just said these things were just kind of going on in the church, and the Vatican had never made any sort of um, announcement or judgment on it. It just was already happening. And I think it's the
Yeah,
same thing with this same-sex blessing stuff. Priests have just been took it upon themselves to go ahead and do it, you know. So
to think they're doing it. Now, yeah, that you're mentioning things, that's the whole principle of the exception becomes the rule. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of what happens. And so I can see, you know, where this could be a real issue because someone, well, this is only happening here or there, but I mean, based on how other things have gone, it would stand to reason that it could be everywhere in 10 years type of thing.
yeah,
If if it was the same sort of thing. For example, altar girls, let's say, though are permissible, um, there's it's not counter to to like what's authored into nature for a girl to serve at the altar,
of
right? It's
course.
kind of it's a separate category in that
Of
sense, right?
course, of course.
Now, I was gonna
I
mention
guess I just use that as an example of
it's a
where priests just kind of pastorally make things up.
yeah, yeah. I don't disagree. I think
And
it's
and
very
no, and I won't interrupt you, but I know I remember because I don't remember communion in the hand. I was just a little kid, but I remember this priest telling me that other priests in his diocese were just having altar girls, and they had not had permission at that time to do it.
Mhm.
So go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna just comment on the blessing thing.
Yeah,
And with regard to the serving, of course, it's, I do kind of chuckle at like, the whole world is like, let's use what we know about the psychological sciences to like to perform better in business and everything. Well, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that when there's altar girls, the boys don't want to do it. Like, put that together with the fact that most vocations come through exposure and excellence and competence at altar serving. So it's like when someone's saying, let's pray for vocations, and then at the same time, like really fighting for altar girls, it's like kind of talking out of two sides of the mouth is the phrase. I don't think I said the phrase right, but it's kind of contradictory in end. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, I know exactly.
Yeah.
No,
That's an
no.
aside. I wanted to mention that some of this blessing thing. I've been thinking about this because, like, Joseph, like, I could be like, if I was to be like, hey, Joseph, I bless you in the name of the Father, something like, I don't have, I don't have the authority to do that. I don't have the spiritual authority and the spiritual chain of command to do that.
Mm,
I would have to say, I ask God to bless you, and God would do what God does.
mm,
Just similarly, like a father could bless his own children and say, I bless you, because he's the spiritual authority in that situation. Um, and so for there's that whole thing about, well, if the priest, like I'm looking at this picture right here, right? So imagine if this place was full of people, right? And that's going to seem, how could, if this was a blessing and that was a same-sex couple and the place was full of people,
It
and
is,
it
it is a same-sex couple.
yeah, yeah. I imagine it all is true, exactly. It would be very, very difficult for anyone to come out of that place thinking that this wasn't to some degree an affirmation of the relationship configuration. And even though the document says, oh, it can't, the letter before it says, there's because there's a letter in front of the document, um, it can't resemble that. It's like, well, as if that's not going to happen, right? Because the way it's already happening is like what's on your screen there. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So there's an example of, sure, that the truth could be reaffirmed, that people can be blessed, but an irregular relationship of any type can't, the relationship itself can't be blessed, but how that individual blessing or the blessing of two people will unfold is going to give people an idea of what's what. And quite frankly, like, where does the culpability, like, where, like, that, as the decision makers who would be most carrying the weight of that, go all the way up, you know.
This
And
is
also the priest, though, if a priest is like, I guess what I'm saying is like, th I think this has emboldened the people who are already disobedient.
correct. This is classic gaslighting. It's a blessing, but it's not a blessing. It's kind of like if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and sounds like a duck, it's a duck. This is a blessing.
Yeah, and there was one part of it that said, like, if people are, I don't have the words in front of me, but if people are approaching with humility,
I have some of it. I can show you.
that I sure, but
Okay.
it's the idea is like, well, okay, well, if a couple, if you have a couple who's living irregularly in whatever fashion, and they're obstinately retaining that stance, where's the humility in that? Right? So would they would a person would the people wouldn't be able to present themselves properly for the blessing, for one
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
And secondly, this is what I was really thinking about, is that, so for a person to reject the revealed truths of our faith, so the question is, well, what is the extent of these revealed truth? Is the fact that God creates man and woman, is that considered a revealed truth?
Hmm.
Or is, I hope so, and that there's a complementarity between males and females, is that a revealed truth? So the point is, if a revealed truth is rejected, I was looking at the definitions in the Catechism about heresy and what's the word?
Apostasy?
Yeah, so I know the word is on the tip of my tongue. Heresy, apostasy, and schism,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, only Catholics can be heretics. Okay, got it. And it's like, it is possible that those conditions could easily be met by someone. It's like they are baptized Catholic, have the ability to know what the teachings are and reject them, and whatever the Catechism says about that. It's like, as soon as you enter the state of heresy, whether it's recognized by the church or not, like like on the soul in that moment, they would not have the authority to be a give a blessing, because the authority of the church wouldn't be behind that blessing. So,
Yeah, I
you know what
hear
I'm
you.
saying?
I hear yeah, I hear that. I hear
Yeah.
that.
But average Joe is gonna have no clue about that. They're just gonna say, "Oh wow, the church is this way now."
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, wow.
Man, the pictures just don't stop.
Yeah. No, oh, I could do this for days. Um,
I'm laughing, but my heart's breaking. You just got to know that,
yeah,
okay?
more.
Like,
This guy used to be I used to know all the players, the gay players in the Catholic Church, but he used to be the Superior General of the Paulus, I think. Um, Gay Mass. I think I already showed that one. Um, this was in Portland, Oregon, and I thought this was interesting because Bishop Sample is very much admired by a lot of traditional Catholics because he's open to the TLM, but he also
mhm.
tolerates this. He tolerates the gay stuff.
I
More
gotta just
more
mention one
rainbow
thing though,
flags.
Joseph. Like, here's the tricky thing. Like, I'm just imagining, like, if I was a priest, right, if I was a priest, right, and I was a guest priest in another parish, like, and there was these pride flags up. Like, I'm thinking, what would I do? Like, would I go tear them down in someone else's church? If I
Yes.
was a bishop, that'd be a different story. But I'm not a bishop, so I'll have to cross that road when I get there.
I've seen more pride flags in Catholic churches than at gay pride parades. So let's see. More stuff.
Yeah, there is. I have to concur. There is far more pride symbolism in Catholic institutions than secular. I like that is unbelievable. I mean,
The,
it also reminds me, that dog, those two dogs on cartoons, like Bugs Bunny cartoons, there's like a bulldog, and then there's a little bouncy dog bouncing around him.
Hmm.
I feel like sometimes us Catholics collectively act like that little thirsty dog trying to be approved. Like, please approve us. We're gonna do everything that you want in this world to like make you think that you should approve us because we're saying yes, we support you, we want to love you this way. And it's like it all points to this idea of like maybe we should ask, are we more attached to like yearning for people to want to be in relationship with us
Hmm.
above
Hmm.
upholding in a respectful way
Hmm.
a truth, standing for something. And quite
Hmm.
frankly, as far as I can tell, when people stand for something difficult, that's more respectable. People want to say, hey, I disagree with this person, but I actually want to kind of have them in my corner because I know they have the guts to stand up for truth as they
Hmm.
see it. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Instead of just caving and like pick me, pick me. Like that's how
Exactly.
I feel. I'm not pinpointing anything, but it's just like it's just weak.
Yeah. I included this one because it's really bad. I would, not much shocks me, but this kind of shocked me, and I included it. I have hundreds and thousands of these examples of
Yeah.
LGBT affirmation in the Catholic Church, but I included this one for my discussion with you because I know you're outspoken about the trans stuff. This is St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church in New York City in Manhattan. So the center of it all. And this is their official LGBT ministry. This is not some fringe dignity group.
Mhm.
And they were actually recommending Mount Sinai, a transgender surgery. I mean, this is crazy. This shocked me. I couldn't believe it. A volunteer just brought this article to my attention, and thought I would share
Mhm.
in case anyone needs the medical care provided at Mount Sinai or knows anyone who might. The title of the article reads Mount Sinai opens a comprehensive center for transgender medicine and surgery. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
This is a Catholic church.
So yeah, so who runs is the questions that I have is who runs the social media page? Who's on the board? Who and the real question is, well, we know there's not enough people on the board or running the pages to say you can't put this stuff up. So the real question is, where are the faithful people?
Well, they're not
And
at
maybe
that.
they're just not enough. I think like on this topic, I'm leaning between 75 to 95% of people in our who are baptized Catholics are absolutely not on board with church teachings on this.
Mm,
Maybe even worse than that.
mm. So this is under Cardinal Dolan. Now here's the actual document. Let's talk about this a little bit.
Sure.
This was the sort of relevant parts that, to be honest with you, I skimmed it, but I did kind of
So did I like to sit down and like read the whole thing top to bottom. I have not done yet. That's why I'm not necessarily commenting on it in its totality.
well, I think everything that you've said is true so far. I think the spin that I have noticed from, I guess and no offense to you as a Catholic, but they call them the Pope splainers. The
I've heard that term.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard
The
that term.
Pope splainers, and I think as much as I love Dave Gordon and his brother Tim, who I talked to Dave yesterday, I think he's a charitable guy, and I think he tries to see the best in everybody. I think he's hopeful, and I think he looks at people as having good intentions. And I'm like, well, the road to hell's paved with good intentions. So,
It is. It is.
yeah, I think his sort of Pope splain was that there's some sort of fictional same-sex couple that all of a sudden want to remain a couple but live chastely. So they go to their local Catholic church to get a blessing. I'm serious. This is what I think Dave was arguing, and I think this is what the Pope splainers are
Mm,
arguing. And I'm like, knock knock.
yeah.
I'm from that world. I'm from the
Yeah.
gay Catholic scene. never met anybody like that.
Yeah.
I've met same-sex couples who claim to be Catholic or practice Catholicism. However, you know, they've sort of put that together in their head, and they would like to get married in the Catholic Church and have a blessing, but they don't have any interest in being chaste. So I think
Yeah.
this
Well, they
is
could.
this is some sort of weird fantasy that there's this lineup of prospective chaste same-sex couples who want to get a blessing in order to live like two brothers or two sisters.
Yeah, like same-sex couple, a chaste same-sex couple is like kind of like saying like cold fire kind of thing. Like it's what's the word paradoxical? And this is not, I'll be very careful. It If I could wave a magic wand, it'd be that the whole world would understand chastity as distinct from abstinence, as distinct from celibacy immediately, and then understand their Christian mission, which is to get to heaven, help others get to heaven through striving to grow in the fullness of virtue, above and beyond just trying to behave certain ways, because behavior doesn't lead to necessarily lead to a holy heart, but a holy heart will lead to faithful looking behavior. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like a one-way
Mm,
street. And so chastity, I mean, it's fundamentally rejected, whether people understand it or not, what at the decision that it is okay to compromise the physiological complementarity of male and female. Like the moment that I think that it's same-sex sexual romantic relationship is something I ought to do, I've made the commitment to reject chastity. I've made the commitment to counter chastity. And that's why chastity begins in the mindset, and so does the rejection of it, you know? And it's like, so how can a person who's committed to that go and say, I'm committed to, well, they're not saying it like with the full knowledge of it typically, but it's like, okay, I reject chastity, yet I want to go get a blessing. It's like saying I reject it's like saying I want to go get an abortion next week, but I want to get a blessing this week anyway. You
right.
know, it's like counter to virtue. He can't be counter to virtue and be pursuing, like, what is the blessing? Maybe how can a person perceive the blessing to be truly what it is? Maybe it's like that blessing makes me feel less guilty or something like that. Or that blessing makes me
Yeah,
feel validated or something.
yeah,
But like no person, I don't think, well, unless their conscience is really twisted, I guess the clouding of conscience can allow people to believe contradictory things, like the
yeah,
fact that you can reject virtue and perceive that a blessing through the priest is actually going to be
yeah,
given to you by God, even though you're in rejection of truth.
yeah,
Uh, it's just how if God's sending His grace to someone who is not cooperating with Him, he'll just assign it to someone else. You
yeah.
know, it's like
Yeah, yeah, and I think this would be a good point for you, especially because you've been more involved with Courage than I. I probably longer. I started Courage in '99. Well, I'm a lot older than you. But the how I saw things, sort of the what the progression was, let's say, of someone in Courage who was struggling with, an LGBT identity or whatever, is that what I saw was that they tended to at least try to initially try to distance themselves from the activity and, let's say, the lifestyle, or first. Some let's use me as an example, because I was in same-sex relationships, and when I had sort of a conversion, I mean, usually the first thing you try to do is you kind of try to remove yourself from that environment that is an occasion of sin.
yeah,
You don't stay in it and say, I want a blessing. That's a different kind of, because there's two different kinds. I don't believe in this LGBT or gay, but let's say there's two different kinds of, like, A or B or whatever. That's in the Protestant world. But let's say there's two different kinds of gay Catholics or LGBT Catholics. You've got the one that embraces chastity and actually tries to to work on their behavior or work on their life. And then you've
Mhm.
got another LGBT Catholic who's like, I want the I want the church to conform to my life. And these are the ones that
Yeah,
want to that and these are the ones that want a blessing.
yeah, yeah, yes. Seems to be correct. It's like, yeah, but then why would someone, if someone is so feels emboldened to say that, the church needs to conform to my views? I mean, well, that would indicate that your view of sin takes precedent over the church's view of sin and holiness and truth and everything, which reveals the fundamental thing. It's like, you want to be your own pope, you want to be your own God, do what you want.
Yeah. I encourage, like, for example, I never saw like a same-sex couple, trying to work through. I knew some people that still lived with, like, say, their former lover, but they didn't
Mhm.
consider themselves a couple anymore. And I don't think they ever would have like presented themselves to a priest and said, well, we would like a blessing as a couple. I just never saw that.
Yeah, I agree, because it seems to be like courage. One of the fundamental goals is chastity,
Yeah.
and chastity it involves like self-denial and self-sacrifice and kind of and turning to God's design, and accepting that, okay, well, there's a complementarity, and this isn't the same-sex situation, isn't the same-sex relationship, whatever you want to call it, isn't fulfilling that. In fact, it's countering it. Um, I'm finding that a lot of the people who call themselves like the side B stuff are sold on this idea that God made you this way, so it's
Yeah.
fundamentally not only a part of who you are, it's like woven into you at every level from the beginning
Yeah.
to the end. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, despite the fact that I mean, every person who's ever like walked away from it is a testament to how false that is. The Catechism talks about the complex origin of attractions. You have the entire science of neuroplasticity that's working against that idea. You got every person who's ever been noticed that they've returned to the scene of abuse by returning to a same-sex sexual encounter because they're trying to make sense of their lives because of what
Yeah.
happened when they're children and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All these ridiculous things,
Yeah.
um, and then to reduce it down to, well, God made you this way. Like it's like a kick in the face to anyone who's ever, especially at the people who have been abused. And like, man, I remember seeing this video clip, and I don't think it was shared with Charity, but this guy was asking these guys at gay clubs, like, so how did you know you were gay? And like several of the guys were saying,
I
like,
saw that. I saw that.
yeah, several were saying, like, I became gay after I was molested by my father, or I became gay because I wanted revenge on these guys who hurt me. Like, there was a lot of hurt and a lot of pain and all that, and it was like none of the stuff the guys pointed to talked about being born that way. And check this out, yeah, or being created that way. I make sure to bring this up in my testimonies all the time. It's like there's this like super mega gay activist guy in Canada who's like, tilting the laws and everything, like really up there. And even he told me that environment plays its factor in the development of our attractions. So I'm like, okay, even like the leading gay activists of Canada are saying this, yet like who still believes that people are born this way? Like,
The Pope and James Martin.
yeah, yeah, yeah. People who have never thought twice about it, or certainly never heard, have never had their imaginations, as they
Yeah.
expanded, to like dig a
Yeah.
little deeper, like
Yeah.
even this much deeper.
Yeah. The thing is with this blessing stuff too, and then I'll move on from this, is that if a same-sex couple approaches a priest for a blessing as a couple, there's already a problem there, no matter what their intentions are,
100%.
because you're not a couple. You're not a
They're a
couple.
couple of
You're
people.
you're not, but you're not a couple. You might be friends if you're trying to live chaste, but you're not a
Yeah.
couple.
Well, to present yourself as a couple, like to present yourself as a couple is to affirm the rejection of chastity. It's like, hi, I reject chastity and I want a blessing. Now,
That's it.
here's that whole thing about blessing, right? They say, well, even a priest can bless the whole congregation at the end of mass, right? That's Nobody's out there saying, like, oh, hey, like, I'm presenting myself as someone who's rejecting virtue beforehand, so he doesn't know. But if a person what do they call that? The spontaneous blessings? Like, sure, here's a blessing if
It's
you're like
it's
humble
right
enough.
on the bottom. It's right on the
Is
bottom
it?
of this line. It says, therefore, the pastoral sensibility of ordained ministers should also be formed to perform blessings spontaneously that are not found in the book of blessings. The Orthodox priest, Father Alexis, that was like he couldn't comprehend that from an Orthodox point of view,
Mhm.
where a priest is just allowed to on the fly, you know,
I see it
bless.
all the time. People like, hey, Father, can you bless this, whatever, this rosary I got or something? It's
Yeah.
like, okay, sure. Here's the blessing book, pop, 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 right? And a blessing occurs. Um, so I can see that, you know, but as soon as people are walking in, presenting themselves as like, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm standing for. It's like I can't like if I was a priest, okay, maybe these words will come back to haunt me, maybe they won't. it's like it's like if I was a priest, they'd be like, okay, are you telling me you want a blessing for your couplehood, for your relationship, or as you as a repentant individual who's desiring to live according to God's grace and knows that you have to die to yourself in your death?
Wow. Well, that would clean things up.
Well, I'd probably get in trouble by whoever heard me say that too. So I
You
don't
would
know.
you
Maybe I
wouldn't
wouldn't. Maybe that
you
would be
you
maybe
wouldn't
good.
be doing much same-sex blessing.
Well, and people, someone would hold me to task and be like, "Are you doing the same thing to the guy who's living shacked up?" And I'd be like,
We don't
"Yes, yes, I
exactly.
would."
Thank you. Are you familiar with Father Dwight Longenecker?
Yeah, yeah.
He's a hero.
You had
He
him on the show once, hey?
I did. If the Catholic Church wants more priests like Father Dwight, you got to allow him to marry because Father Dwight's married.
Oh, is he?
He's a former Anglican priest.
Uh, I don't know, man. I'm on the fence on this one, but I will say what would be helpful, I think.
Father Dwight's doing a great job, and he's got a wife and kids.
I agree, but I think he would do a great job if he didn't have a wife and kids because of his character.
Mm,
Check this out. Check this out.
maybe not as good. He's got life experience and he can cut. I interviewed Father Dwight because as a father, as a
Mhm.
biological father, he can cut through a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, he would have the practical experience and stuff, that's for sure. What was I gonna say? This
Sorry,
is
sorry,
about
sorry.
it's okay. This is about the singlehood and being married and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. I for whatever reason, I remember meditating on like seeds of Cain, seeds of Abel, right? And I'm
Mm,
like, seeds
mm,
of Cain, what a great name for like a heavy metal band or something like that.
yeah, it is.
If it's not out there, someone can take it. Okay. But it was like um giving your first offerings to God versus giving your leftovers to God. That's what it's about, really. The seeds of Cain are like, okay, I mean, this is just my interpretation. It's like I could give God my leftovers, or I could give God my first efforts. And I want to give God my first efforts. And so if I was a parent, right, I wouldn't be like, um, I would want to encourage vocations among my kids who are most fatherly. That could be the best, and not just be like, I'll give them not necessarily my last kid, but I'm saying like the kid who's like at the lowest of the totem pole. Well, this kid's never gonna get married, so maybe he should become a priest. I want to know how many times that thought went through people's heads in the last 50 years, or 100 years. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, this person should probably be a priest because they're not really relating well as a man to other guys, or they're not a man's man. Or I
They
want to
don't.
have grandchildren, so
They
I want to have
don't.
grandchildren. You know what I'm saying? So I want to like marry all these
They don't
boys.
like girls.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd be a good
Yeah.
priest.
Yeah.
And it's
Exactly.
like I know
That
that conversation happened, and you can't go back in time,
happened a
but
lot, Hudson.
I have no doubt in my mind that people giving their weakest man to the church has impacted this.
Exactly. This is where I'm gonna try to kind of wind it down.
Sure.
Is it trying? Is it well, I mentioned it, but you also mentioned it sort of uh you referred to it right in the beginning, sort of pastoral practice as opposed to official church teaching. So if we want to regard this Well, it is official church teaching. So this is an official church document. Now we're going to go to pastoral practice. So Father Dwight, when did he do 2021? I love him on Twitter, follow him on Twitter. The Methodists in the UK have just voted in favor of same-sex marriage. Is it too impolite to ask how such unions are to be consummated? It's not too, he's being sarcastic,
I know.
you know.
But why not ask the question?
Here's a response. Jason Stidell. Father James Martin just blessed this guy's marriage. He wrote, "A little bit of spit usually does the trick."
Yeah, see that
Is
a real
is
holy and virtuous person would those are the kind of words that would roll right off their mouth.
is that nasty or what?
That's nasty, totally.
Okay.
What type of sensibilities? Where are your sensibilities? You know?
And somebody else responded, obviously, Father wasn't paying attention in the part of seventh grade health where they introduced us to lubricants.
Yeah, and the beauty thing is that the beautiful thing about this is that all this does is reveals where people's heads are at, and everybody knows exactly what this is, you
Well,
know?
this is why I was offended. Jason Stidell can say whatever he wants. I don't give a F, you know. But he had to bring me into it. I
Hmm.
think this is why there are so many vocal anti-gay homosexuals, Joseph Schomburg, Michael Voris, etc., in the Catholic Church. It sounds like they had experiences with sex because they were doing it wrong. What a really kind thing to say to a pre-sex
That
abuse survivor. I guess I
totally.
was I guess I was doing it wrong, but I guess all the other times I was doing it wrong. So
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, it also sounds like it was could have been said by like a witty 13-year-old. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like to be coming off the I'm just gonna say it, like it's brutally underdeveloped and immature and
yeah.
hurtful.
These are references to me too, throwing around my PhD in theology like it's nobody's business to assure folks that demon sex does not cause human health problems. This is not an endorsement of sex with demons. If a sexy one offers to get in bed with you, you should probably pray the Lord's Prayer or something.
Um, you know what? You know why people like this? I mean, I can understand the hurt, especially coming from the situation of being abused and being kind of like, who do you think you are? I get it. I get it. I have just learned to trust over the last years, couple years, the whole idea of like the wheat and the weeds grow together. And like my life is better if I just surrender this guy and guys like this to God and say, God, thank you for dealing with this guy when the time comes.
Yeah.
But he can't steal my joy anymore.
I had forgotten about him and what he had said, although I have files where I save this stuff. You never know when it's going
Mhm.
to be code. You know. And well, here's more, because this guy is important in a minute, and I'll show you why. So here's James Martin, praising
Mhm.
his book, and he's can you believe it? This guy teaches theology at St. Joseph's University in New York.
I can believe it because I know people who have their theology ticket, who like their whatever their theology ticket, or their degree in theology or their program, who are
Yeah.
completely proteges of Father James Martin. And you and I know some of those same
Yeah.
people.
Look at what
So
he
it's
wrote
like,
here. So many gay Catholics I know practice a fail-safe method of NFP.
yeah. So
That's nasty.
it's kind of reflective of where his mind's at, right? Let the whole world see it.
And he
It's
says
good.
that ex-gays, we're all obsessed with this stuff, but it's all he's talking about. So
Yeah.
so here's Father Martin with his good buddy there, on the
So
same.
you know what, Joe? Like this is Joseph. This has been one of the most beautiful accidental things that I think has happened. Is that all of this stuff does every time that it inches a little farther or is perceived to inch a little farther, people just shout out their cards more and more brazenly. And it reminds me, like I love 1 Corinthians 11, chapter 19. It's that there'll be divisions or factions among you, so you'll know who's true. So the more, imagine if none of this stuff was forced to the surface. These guys would be not out there in public doing this stuff. They'd be doing it quietly behind closed doors. You'd never find them. You wouldn't know who's doing this stuff. Now we know, and that's kind of a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here.
Bad
This is I had forgotten all about this guy, to be honest with you. And then I saw this. Dear friends, I was honored to bless my friends Jason and Damien this morning in our Jesuit residence according to the new guidelines laid out by the Vatican for same-sex couples. But before this, I've been blessed by their friendship and support.
Okay. I have a
This is the guy,
story.
this is the dude that said I didn't use enough lube.
Someone had mentioned to me that Father James Martin, now this may or may not be true, but Father James Martin was the one who sought out this, brought the media or brought the cameras to like make this an expose. Like even the whole orchestration or the dynamic of how this came to be, you know. And then here's like the joke's on him, because if he thinks he's actually blessing the relationship, he's not. He's entered into the rejection of the revealed truths of God. And so the power of the church is not behind that blessing.
Here it is again, and this is his pet project, outreach Catholic, whatever. I don't know.
Mm.
But here he says that outreach editor James Martin made history this morning by offering a Vatican sanctioned blessing to a gay married Catholic couple, Jason Stidel, who's
Yeah, so it's not Vatican sanctioned.
the lube dude. So
Dude.
yeah,
Sounds
yeah,
repentant.
yeah.
But hey,
But,
that's
but
I can't judge culpability. But I'm just being
yeah,
salty.
you can't, but you also can't blame James Martin because Pope Francis brought him in to the Vatican, and I think a lot of people, Father Gerald Murray is one of them I know, who's on EWTN a lot, has said this is a bad appointment. But over the years, no matter what James Martin has said or done, Pope Francis has stood by him.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see what do you call it when somebody's like receives a correction or like loses an appointment, let's say, like other faithful bishops have had, you know.
Yeah.
I,
Oh,
I, I people have been, I mean, generationally speaking, how old is he? Like to what degree was his formation, I don't know, accurate?
James
Was
Martin?
was it
Well,
flavored?
he's a Jesuit.
Well, I mean, I'm being facetious. Like I have a reasonable idea that his formation was flavored in a certain way. Um, but again, you know, like if this was 500 years ago, I never would have had a clue about this, and I'd be more concerned about trying to like attend to my family and my community, and right, and that's what I'm striving to do now. Like this stuff happens; it's important for us to talk about. But at the end of the day, like
I,
you
I,
know,
I think yeah,
Luke guy can enjoy his life and pay the price. And I'll pray for him with the wall of Christ being my like the
yeah,
boundary, and that's fine. God will use more with my prayers, through my prayers and serenity for all those people than
yeah.
if I was to, I don't know, run around and
I
I'll leave
think
with prayer.
I'm not saying that you're saying this, but I used to have that belief that, and I'm not even Catholic anymore, but I used to have this belief that, let people do what they got to do and they're going to have to pay the price. But what my concern is they drag a lot of people along with them.
I have the same concern. Like I'm not in no way exonerating myself from my responsibility to
Yeah,
fight back, but I have to assess. I have this much time in the day. My circle of orbit is here.
I hear
I
you.
need to make sure that my community is taken care of first, like my
Yeah,
family, my community, the greater community outwards, right? That's what I'm saying. Like we're on the same page on that one.
yeah.
That's for sure.
You're doing this right now too. Oh,
Uh,
yeah. So this
you
is
did it right when you click to the ring. No, I'm not doing that. Right now, I'm trying to live as a single guy in my diocese, trying to give my life in the ways that I can for the strength of the community. That's what I'm trying to do.
James Martin liked this particular Instagram post. Um,
Are you shocked? Are you shocked? Come on, we're not.
of course not.
What the heck is this? Oh my gosh.
So this is Jason and his husband. So they're
Oh, of
legal.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, they're legally married. So there that I think, I mean, things moved quick Pope Francis issued that statement, the very next day, we see the ramifications in the pastoral realm. And
among among those who have already rejected the teachings of the church. Like
but
the faithful priests that I know think like they're nowhere
well, they
near.
wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it in the first place.
Right, exactly.
But do you honestly think that what James Martin did right there is an anomaly?
No, I don't
No,
think it's an anomaly.
no.
No, I don't think it's an anomaly, but I do think it's like on the side of evil to be giving people like straight out, or if not evil in itself, to because is gonna be a lot of impact. But I'm understanding that a lot of the new priests who are the people who are concerned with entering into priesthood now have a much more orthodox lens. They have to pay a price now to be Catholic a little more than they used to. It's not a time for like easy. I just want to
Yeah.
less of it anyway. And so it's kind of like this. It's like these guys are going to die off. The younger people are going to come up. Ideas will stick around for as long as people want to stay disobedient.
Hudson,
Yeah.
Hudson, I'm older than you, and I love you, brother. But I heard that stuff in the 80s
Uh,
during it when they were saying, "Oh, the JP2 priests, different, totally different. JP2 priests.
but they are different. But
Those JP2 priests are older now
I
and
don't.
probably
Okay, I don't want to say JP2 priest, and
so they didn't it didn't nothing they didn't change anything.
I want Joseph. I want to just clarify, like incremental difference, right? Because like the James Martins are going to age out, the younger people come in, but it's not the age alone that is going to do the difference. It's the desire for orthodoxy, being formed in an orthodox way, and it seems to be that there's the proportion of people being formed in orthodox ways who are stepping up to the plate is growing relative to the other side. So it's just like a shift of I can't do a shift of proportion or so. But yeah, like I don't expect that. Well, this is going to be better in terms of like going to fix the problem. It's never going to be a problem, never going to be a solution. Kind of like the ebb and flow of the push against evil, and I do think it is evil to draw people into sin. But there's just a lot of people who want to do it, and there's also a lot of people who want to become or who there's a lot of people who enter roles of influence so that they can influence people in those ways because they think they're doing the right thing. So I receive what you said and I accept it, and
Okay.
you're right to call me out on that.
No, no,
But
I wasn't calling you. I was just pushing back a little bit.
yeah, pushing back in a nice way. But you did hear what I said, though. I said these people will die off, these people rise up, but
I heard you. I heard you.
the ideas will still. Because didn't you say like who was that guy? He was in the picture, the black and white picture.
John J. McNeil.
Yeah, McNeil. Like thought like his ideas. Would you say are similar to Father James Martin?
Very, very. When
So
when I
and after
when
Father James Martin, there's going to be Father so and so. It's just going to keep popping up
yeah.
forever.
But John J. McNeil and I did podcasting on this. He never got the traction that James Martin has got, and I wish that because I think like Dave Gordon, you're a good guy, and I think you try to think positively about this, and I wish that good Catholic priests had as much power in the institution. I wish they had more power, but Catholicism is a top-down organization. And if you have somebody like Francis, you can have all the good priests in the world and they can't make a bit of difference because they have to do, in the end, they have to do what their bishops tell them to do, and the bishops have to do what the Pope tells them to do.
I don't know because like
so, so I mean,
it,
that's go
on
ahead.
this topic though, because there's elements of truth to that. It top down, I get it. But if I'm a priest or someone's a priest and says, "Can you bless us?" The priest can say, "No, I don't think that this I can bless in this circumstance because it's going to give people the conclusion that I'm blessing this relationship."
I think like you saw with the gay wedding cakes, with you had people who were very litigious activists,
Yeah,
where they sought out a cake decorator who wouldn't decorate their gay
yeah,
wedding cake. I think you're
just
going to have very litigious gay Catholics who are
yeah.
like, let's hit up this priest for a blessing, and I bet you he'll say no, and then we can make a cause celeb out of it. So that's coming down the pipe.
Joseph, I don't doubt that there are people who would love that. No, I'm serious because I already know that there's been people who've tried to get like, hey, let's see what pastor or priest won't bless baptize our baby in the same section.
That's
That's
it.
already happened. That's
That's
already
it.
happened, and it's like, for what reason are people doing this other than to stir shit up? You know, it's like, now let's talk about that document. It's like, of humble heart, of like, are you there for the right reasons? You know,
I think
pardon my
also,
language.
no. I think also what this document is going to do is I think it's going to also force more good young men who probably have a vocation to the priesthood to second think it, because they're kind of like, I don't want to bless a same-sex couple. So I think, I'm not going to go forward. I remember a young man who was thinking, because when I lived down in LA, I'm gonna let you go. When I lived down in LA, I had befriended the seminarians at St. John's in Camarillo. And one of the guys had told me, well, the vocations director, and he was really conservative guy, Orthodox Malo. And he said, well, the vocations director asked me that, would I be comfortable on celebrating a mass with a female priest in the future if that takes place? And you really had to say yes. So I think a lot of that thing weeds people out. So I think some young men looking at this saying, I'm not going to be comfortable doing that. So I'll,
Mhm.
I'll, I'll do something else.
Yeah, that's a fair point, and I've never thought of that before. At first, when you brought it up, the first thing I thought about was like, okay, if that was me, I would be like, that's not stopping me. But at the same time, I'm me, and not other people are not like me. Like, everyone's different is what I'm saying. And so I can see, yeah, for sure, that might dissuade some people.
And I think people also see the Father Paul Kalcheks, the Father Mark White, and the Bishop Strickland, who have been people that have said, I think they haven't, all three of those guys are very much Catholic, and they haven't rejected any Catholic teachings, but I think they've just been brave enough to say, I think the church is going in the wrong direction. And that was enough to,
Yeah. What do you want me to say to that?
I don't know. I
Yes,
don't,
it's true.
I don't know, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, well, I look to those kind of guys as for like inspiration to do
Wow.
what is right when times are difficult. And actually, really, I've been pondering things like suffering and what we can do in surrendering suffering to the Lord, and how this can be good done for the good of souls, because a loving Father gives back to humanity more than what humans could ever give to him. And so I'm like, well, I bet you let's say Bishop Strickland is completely, and he's not completely like cut out and censored, but let's say he was, and they put him in a little castle turret and they put bricks around him, and that was it. And they fed him through a slot. That guy, I have faith in God that he's inspired that guy with enough of a wherewithal to understand that he could convert more souls through surrendering his sufferings in that castle turret for the rest of his life than
Hmm.
what I could do if I traveled the globe as a Catholic speaker. And so that's what I think about, is like, how could I, even if something crazy happened, I'd only have that moment to surrender my heart to Jesus, and what good could come from that? That would be for me to find out in heaven if God wants me to know it,
Okay.
and just kind of being at peace with that.
Okay. Okay. So I've kept you long enough. Do you have like any final thoughts about this document? I think this is how I ended it with Father Alexis and Dave Gordon. Is it
Um,
I mean, do you think it's good? Do you think I think Dave, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but the impression that I got from Dave is that he thought it was a good document. And I think Father Alexis absolutely. Well, Father Alexis said it's not. So where do you? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but where do you kind of fall?
Um, I think that this document has, if it's a huge opportunity for people to actually learn about matters of authority. For example, like I can't bless you. Could a priest bless sin? They can't. So to understand authority underneath the blessing, and to, but also on its own, I would hope it would come with sufficient catechesis, but I don't hold my breath
Mm,
that there would be clarifications to do so. So the document on its own, quite frankly, Joseph, I think is I lean towards it is what it is, and I'm okay with it. Like I wasn't bothered when I saw it,
wow.
but after pondering how people would run to the hills with crazy conclusions, then I'm like, the real problem is people's clouded consciences who are now emboldened with they're emboldened to propagate errors
Hmm.
even more than they would have been before. And I think that's a problem. So that's kind of where
Yeah.
I hope,
And
yeah,
hasn't Pope Francis kind of become famous for being sort of this purveyor of ambiguity too? So this is kind of in line with what I mean, that's kind of been the criticism of him before.
yeah. I'm really trying to work on mind frame. I'm not trying to Pope explain, but
Yeah.
it's like total ambiguity. I'm going to look at that as an opportunity to dive. Like yesterday, I learned a lot about what our faith teaches about heresy
Well,
and conditions. And I'm like, I probably would never have looked into that unless something like ridiculous as what Father James Martin was doing was actually happening. So I took it that way. But again, will most people take it that way? I don't know. Probably not.
okay. Okay. Do
So
you before we go, you want to share anything? What are you doing in terms of like Catholic outreach or ministry, anything?
right now I'm just kind of starting to write again.
Oh, good.
Um, yeah, it feels good to write.
You were working on a book.
I, yeah, I'm working on a manuscript. I brought it one place and it didn't get accepted, and I'm like, thank you, that was a blessing in disguise. I think it was a little underdeveloped, but that's okay. But you know what? Even like the writing process has been a very beautiful part of the years, you know? So just doing that and really honestly just trying to prioritize, like I said, trying to prioritize serving at home with the community first, and then outreach is secondary to that. I gotta have things in the right order. So
Okay. Now
just that.
you're okay. Now you're not on Twitter, are you, Hudson?
No, I was on Twitter for like an hour and a half, and I was like, I can't
Okay.
handle this.
Do you want me to put your Facebook? I'll put your Facebook in
Oh yeah,
the description.
you can link to me in whatever way you want.
No, okay, so I'll put everybody. I'll put Hudson's Facebook link in the video description because you're pretty active on Facebook.
Yeah, it's just it's not like a ministry page. It's just me, and but the posts are public,
Yeah.
and if there's yeah
Okay. Hey, God bless you. Thank you, Hudson, my
yeah, it's
friend.
nice to chat with you again, brother.